A strip of golden light from the bedroom cut across the marble hallway like a blade. Lucia's sister had just cancelled dinner. Her husband had suddenly stopped answering his phone. In Lucia's purse, wrapped in white tissue, was the pregnancy test with 2 pink lines she had come home to place in Tomaso's hand. Then Valentina's familiar laugh drifted from inside the bedroom. Even denial had the decency to leave quietly. Lucia almost admired the efficiency. 1 room, 2 betrayals, and neither of them had bothered to lock the door. Her fingers tightened around the handle. The bedroom door stood open 3 inches. Just 3 inches. But through that narrow gap, Lucia Sylvestri watched her entire world collapse in absolute silence. Tomaso's back, those familiar broad shoulders, the dark tattoos curling up his neck above the collar of his unbuttoned shirt, moved in the dim light, and beneath him, fingers raking down his spine, her sister smiled. Not with passion, but with triumph. Valentina's eyes found hers through that 3-inch gap, and she didn't stop. She smiled wider. Lucia's hand fell from the door handle. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. Something inside her simply ended. The hallway stretched before her like a tunnel, and Lucia walked through it without feeling her legs move. Her hand found the wall for balance, her wedding ring catching the light from the tall window at the end of the corridor. In the foyer of the Sylvestri estate, her purse sat on the entrance table where she had dropped it 20 minutes earlier. She had rushed home to tell her husband they were going to have a child. Instead, she had found him making her sister smile. Worried. The irony burned like acid in her throat. She picked up her purse and checked for her wallet, keys, passport, and phone. The screen showed 3 missed calls from Tomaso's office earlier that afternoon and a message from Valentina sent 2 hours ago. Running late for dinner. Don't wait up. Lucia stared at those words until they blurred. She removed her wedding ring, wrote 2 words on the back of a calling card, folded it around the ring, and sealed both inside an envelope. At the front door, she gave it to the night steward. Place this beside Tomaso in the morning, not before. Then she walked out, past the guards who nodded respectfully, past the fountain where Tomaso had kissed her for the first time, and past the iron gates that had always felt protective but now felt like the bars of a prison she had willingly entered. By dawn, she was at the train station. Tomaso did not realize she was gone until morning, and that was when he noticed the ring. It sat on his nightstand, catching the pale morning light, placed precisely in the center of a folded piece of paper. His heart stopped. Actually stopped. He could feel the absence of its beating, the sudden vacuum in his chest that made breathing impossible. The paper contained 2 words in Lucia's elegant handwriting. I saw. Tomaso read them 7 times before their meaning penetrated the fog clouding his mind. I saw. I saw what? He looked around the bedroom, searching for context, for an explanation that did not exist. His gaze fell on the tangled sheets beside him, on the impression of another body, on the long, dark hair caught against his pillowcase, hair too straight and too dark to belong to Lucia. The memory returned in fractured images. Whiskey in his office after a brutal meeting. Valentina arriving uninvited, saying Lucia had sent her because she had cancelled dinner to finish work. Valentina pouring another drink, her mouth close to his ear, his own hand closing around her wrist, and then failing to make her leave. He had been drunk. He had been furious. He had been manipulated by a woman who had studied his weaknesses for years. But he had not been unconscious. He had known whose mouth he was kissing. The truth crashed through him like a physical blow. His phone was already in his hand. Lucia's number went straight to voicemail. He tried again, and again. 15 calls before an automated message informed him that the number was no longer in service. At the station, Lucia watched his name flash across her screen for the 15th time. She dropped the phone into a public garbage bin, boarded the train, and did not look back. The test with 2 pink lines remained in her purse. She knew she carried 1 life away from Tomaso. She did not know yet that there were 2 heartbeats. No. The word came out as a whisper, then a growl, then a roar that echoed off the bathroom walls. No. No. He was dressed and in his car within minutes. His driver startled at the sudden appearance of his boss in yesterday's clothes, with wild eyes and clenched fists. "Find her," Tomaso said. "Every airport, every train station, every bus terminal. Find her now." They did not find her. In Florence, she cut her hair in the restroom of a crowded station. In Nice, she exchanged her ivory coat for a student's faded green jacket. In Barcelona, she slept beneath the name Lucia Marquez. She paid cash, avoided cameras, and never called anyone she loved. By the end of the week, she had crossed 4 borders and disappeared into a life Tomaso Sylvestri would not find for more than 5 years. Every mile hurt. But pain, she discovered, could be useful. It kept her moving. Tomaso answered with everything power could buy: passenger lists, informants, corrupt officials, investigators, and favors owed in money or blood. Nothing found her. Lucia had spent 4 years studying the machinery of his world. Now she defeated it by becoming ordinary. On the 23rd day of the search, Valentina appeared in his office doorway with artfully smudged mascara and a trembling lower lip. "I know you're upset with me," she began. "But you were drunk, Tomaso. So was I. It was a mistake. We both. Get out." The flatness of his tone stopped her. "You wanted my ring on your finger from the day I met your sister," he said. "You could not seduce me when I was sober, so you waited until I was angry and full of whiskey. You calculated every step of that night. Now you are calculating again." "Lucia left you," Valentina said, and for one unguarded second, satisfaction broke through the fragile performance. "I'm still here." Tomaso rose from behind his desk. Valentina took 1 step backward. "Here is what you failed to account for," he said softly. "I loved her. Not you. Never you. What happened in that room was my failure, and I will answer for it for the rest of my life. But do not mistake my guilt for affection toward you." Her face hardened. "My father has friends in the Calabri family. If you threaten me, let them come." Tomaso returned to his desk and opened the next file, dismissing her as if she were already irrelevant. "I have been looking for something to destroy." Valentina fled. He did not watch her go. That was his second mistake. His first had cost him Lucia. His second would show the Calabri family where to look for her. 3 weeks after disappearing, Lucia woke on the bathroom floor of a cheap Lisbon hostel with one hand over her stomach and the burner phone in the other. She still knew Tomaso's private number by heart. One call would bring his plane, his men, his apologies, and the terrible relief of letting someone powerful decide everything for her again. Then she saw the 3-inch opening. Her sister's smile. Tomaso's conscious choice. Lucia switched off the phone. "Whatever happens," she whispered to the child she already loved, "I choose you." By the time morning sickness made temporary translation work impossible, she had reached Cascais, a coastal town west of Lisbon where white houses climbed above the Atlantic. She met Teresa Alves after fainting in a pharmacy. Teresa was a 68-year-old retired midwife with silver hair, blunt opinions, and no patience for lies. She took Lucia to a clinic and waited while the doctor found 2 tiny pulses on the screen. "2?" Lucia whispered. The doctor turned the monitor. 2 rapid heartbeats filled the room. Lucia laughed once, then covered her mouth and cried. She had fled believing she was protecting one child. Now the future had doubled in front of her. Teresa drove her home without asking who the father was. "You need food," Teresa said that evening, placing soup in front of her. "You need sleep. And those babies need a mother who understands that accepting help is not the same as surrendering. I can pay you when I find work. You can pay me by not fainting in public again. It creates paperwork." Teresa offered her the spare room above the courtyard. Lucia intended to stay 1 week. She stayed through the winter. The twins arrived at 36 weeks during a storm that shook the clinic windows. 2 boys, perfect and furious and absolutely his. Lucia looked at their dark hair and sharp little features and sobbed because joy and grief had become impossible to separate. She named them Leonardo and Mateo, Leo and Matt. Names that belonged to neither family, names that were theirs alone. Lucia built their childhood in stolen hours. She translated immigration papers while one baby slept against her chest and the other kicked inside a borrowed bassinet. A small law office hired her for her 4 languages. By the twins' 2nd birthday, she could afford an apartment near the water. The attorneys knew her as Lucia Marquez, a widow who faced the door and avoided photographs. Leo grew thoughtful and watchful, memorizing every street between home and school. Matt met the world with his heart exposed, rescuing insects and believing pastries solved most sadness. When they asked about their father, Lucia said only that he had not known they were coming. She would not make Tomaso a hero, but she would not teach her sons to carry her hatred. 6 months after Lucia vanished, a Madrid attorney served Tomaso with divorce papers that revealed no address. He signed them without contest. Fighting would have forced Lucia into a courtroom, and he had already used enough power against her life. He kept her wedding ring in the inside pocket of his suit and the note locked in his desk. The search never stopped. By the 3rd year, Tomaso had built a private system that compared faces from airports, employment registries, street cameras, and public records. Every possible match reached him personally. There were hundreds. None were Lucia. Marco, his right-hand man, was the only person brave enough to tell him the truth. 6 months after the divorce, he found Tomaso on the estate balcony, staring at the fountain where everything had once seemed possible. "Boss," Marco said carefully, "maybe she does not want to be found." Tomaso's laugh held no humor. "I know she does not. Then why keep searching? Because wanting to be left alone and being safe are not the same thing. And if you find her?" Tomaso's hand closed around the ring in his pocket. "I tell her I am sorry. I make sure she has everything she needs. Then, if she still tells me to leave, I leave." Marco studied the man who had ordered wars over smaller losses and understood how much those words had cost him. "Will you?" Tomaso looked toward the iron gates. "I do not know," he admitted. 5 years passed. Lucia believed distance had won. Then, on a rainless Tuesday morning in Rome, Marco entered Tomaso's office holding a tablet with both hands. "There is something you should see." Tomaso did not look up. He had heard those words too many times. How confident? 94%. His pen stopped. Location? Cascais, Portugal. A woman named Lucia Marquez registered as a translator with a local law firm 3 years ago. Tomaso's hand moved toward the tablet, then stopped. Hope had become a cruelty he no longer permitted himself. "What makes this one different?" Marco's silence changed the air in the room. "She has children," he said. "Twin boys. 5 years old." Tomaso looked up. His mind performed the calculation before he consciously allowed it. 5 years. Twins. He took the tablet. The surveillance image showed Lucia crossing a sunlit street, older now, thinner, her hair longer and threaded with premature silver at the temples. But it was her. The gentle curve of her jaw, the expressive eyes, the mouth he had kissed 1,000 times and dreamed about every night since she left. Beside her, each holding one of her hands, 2 small boys looked up at her with adoring smiles. They had his face, his eyes, his stubborn jaw already emerging from the softness of childhood. They were his. The tablet cracked beneath his grip. 5 years, he whispered. Marco said nothing. Tomaso enlarged the photograph until the pixels blurred. One boy carried a blue backpack. The other had a bandage on his knee. Ordinary details from an entire childhood Tomaso had missed. First words, first steps, fevers in the night, birthdays, fears. 1,000 mornings when they had woken without knowing he existed. His sons were alive. His sons were strangers. "Prepare the plane," he said. Marco did not move. "There is another problem." Tomaso's eyes lifted. "The match was accessed 7 minutes after our system flagged it. Someone inside the search operation copied the location." "Who?" "We are tracing it." Tomaso looked again at Lucia and the boys. Hope disappeared. In its place came a cold terror he knew far better. How many people knew what the system was built to find? Too many over 5 years. And the Calabri family? Marco's expression answered before he spoke. One of the compromised contractors worked for a company tied to them. Tomaso rose so quickly the chair struck the wall. "Prepare 2 planes," he said, "and wake every man we trust in Portugal." The coastal town of Cascais glittered beneath the Portuguese sun, all white buildings, blue water, and an easy charm that felt 1,000 miles from the violence of Tomaso's world. He arrived before midnight and did not approach Lucia. For 3 days he watched. It was not strategy that held him back. It was shame. Every morning at 8:15, Lucia walked the boys to school. Leo stayed close to her side, carrying his blue backpack with both straps fastened. Matt skipped ahead, then doubled back whenever he found something worth showing them. A red leaf, a bottle cap, a stone shaped like a heart. Lucia kissed each boy at the school gate. She always waited until they were inside before turning away. Then she crossed to a cafe, ordered 1 coffee, and worked at a corner table until 10. Tomaso watched from a rented car half a block away and learned the dimensions of the life she had built without him. On the second afternoon, he saw her laugh with Teresa outside the market. The sound did not reach him through the glass, but her face transformed. For 1 second, she looked like the woman who used to dance barefoot in the estate kitchen when she thought no one was watching. His chest tightened. "Go to her," Marco said from the front seat. "And say what?" Marco glanced at him in the mirror. For once, perhaps the truth. Tomaso looked away. On the 4th morning, the decision was taken from him. A sleek black sedan entered the narrow street behind Lucia's apartment. Tomaso recognized the registration pattern before Marco finished checking it. A Calabri vehicle. It slowed once, circled the block, and stopped 2 buildings away. 2 men stepped out. Tomaso was moving before conscious thought caught up. His driver abandoned stealth for speed. Their car mounted the curb outside Lucia's building as the 2 Calabri soldiers reached her door. Tomaso stepped into the street before the vehicle fully stopped. His hand remained inside his jacket, though the authority in his voice was more dangerous than any weapon. "Step away from that door." The men turned. One was young enough to mistake courage for loyalty. The other recognized Tomaso and lost color around his mouth. "Don Sylvestri," the older man said. "We did not expect." "That is why you are still breathing. What is your business here?" The younger soldier glanced at the apartment windows. "The woman. Don Mauro has an interest in her." "What kind of interest?" The soldiers exchanged a look. "Leverage," the older one admitted. "Word is, she is connected to you." Tomaso stepped closer. "Listen carefully. Lucia and her children are under my protection. They have always been under my protection, even when I did not know where they were. Anyone who threatens them, anyone who follows them, anyone who so much as speaks their names with harmful intent will answer to me personally. We are following orders. Then take new orders back to your Don." Tomaso removed his empty hand from his jacket, somehow more threatening for holding nothing. "Tell Mauro Calabri that any move against this family is a declaration of war. Tell him I know one of his companies breached my system. And tell him I have been looking for something to destroy for 5 years. I would welcome the excuse." The older man seized his companion's arm and retreated. Tomaso watched until their car disappeared. Then he turned toward the apartment. Lucia stood in the open doorway. The twins were partially hidden behind her legs. Her face held no joy, no relief, not even surprise, only absolute horror. "I'm not here to hurt you," Tomaso said. "Get away from us." She was shaking, but her body had positioned itself between him and the boys. "Lucia, I would never. I don't care who you are or what power you have. If you come near my sons. Our sons." The words hung between them, heavy and undeniable. Behind her, 2 small faces stared at him with confusion and dawning curiosity. They did not know him. They had no reason to trust him, but they had his eyes, his jaw, and his restless energy barely contained in small bodies. "Mama?" Matt whispered. "Who is that man?" Lucia's face crumpled. She gathered herself with visible effort. "Go to Teresa's apartment," she told them. "Mama needs to talk to this person. Stay there until I come for you." Leo did not move. His gaze traveled over Tomaso's suit, the men behind him, the car angled across the curb, and the direction in which the strangers had fled. "Is he dangerous?" Leo asked. Lucia looked directly at Tomaso. "Yes." The answer struck harder than a fist. "Will he hurt you?" No, Tomaso said before Lucia could speak. Never. Leo studied him, then took his brother's hand. They crossed the landing reluctantly, both looking back before Teresa drew them inside. When the neighboring door closed, Lucia turned on Tomaso. You had no right to say that. They are my blood. Blood does not make a father. Her voice shook with 5 years of suppressed anger. Presence makes a father. Protection makes a father. Being there when they are sick, when they are scared, when they need someone to show them how to be brave, that makes a father. You were betraying me with my sister while I was carrying your children and planning how to tell you. He did not defend himself. You are right. The easy agreement enraged her more. Do not stand there and make guilt look noble. You had choices. You made one. I know. You don't know. You didn't give birth to 2 babies alone. You didn't sit between their hospital beds wondering how to pay rent. You didn't answer questions about a father they had never met. You lost us for 5 years. I lived every day of those years. Tomaso absorbed each word without looking away. I am not asking for forgiveness, he said. I am not asking you to love me again. But those boys deserve to know the truth, and they need protection from everything I am. They were safe until you came. No, they were hidden. There is a difference. He told her about the breached facial recognition result, the Calabri contractor, and the 2 men who had reached her door. Lucia glanced down the quiet street. Curtains moved in 2 windows. A scooter passed at the corner. The world looked exactly as it had an hour earlier, and that frightened her more than visible chaos would have. So what now? She asked. I run again? New town? New name? New school? How long before your enemies find us there? You let me protect you properly. I do not want your protection. You may not want it, but right now you need it. Her expression hardened. Tomaso heard the words as she must have heard them. Not an offer, but an order from the man whose power had already contaminated her life. He forced himself to step back. I'm sorry, that came out wrong. It came out honestly. Then here is the honest version. Calabri knows about you. I cannot make him forget. I can put guards on this street, harden the school, move you to a secure house, or help you disappear somewhere my own people will not know. You choose. I will pay for any option, and I will not use it to control you. Lucia stared at him. Years earlier, he would have announced the decision and expected obedience. The fact that he offered choices now did not erase the man he had been, but it unsettled the shape of her anger. Guards, she said finally. For now. At a distance. They do not speak to the boys, enter my apartment, or follow me into my office. Agreed. And you stay in a hotel. His jaw flexed once. Agreed. I will decide when you meet them. Pain moved across his face before discipline concealed it. Agreed. Lucia reached for the door. One more thing, Tomaso said. She waited. Valentina came to me after you left. I rejected her. She mentioned her father's connection to Calabri. I did not treat it as a threat because I thought she was trying to frighten me. What are you telling me? That this may not have begun with the database breach. Valentina may have told them you were the one person they could use against me. Lucia's fingers tightened around the doorframe. Her sister's smile returned with terrible clarity. Find out, she said, but do not kill her. Tomaso's gaze sharpened. I mean it. If the price of your protection is a body buried somewhere, I do not want it. For years, no one had spoken to him that way, and remained standing. Tomaso inclined his head. Then I will find another price. The days that followed existed in a strange limbo, suspended between the life Lucia had built and the one Tomaso had brought to her door. The guards were good. She noticed them only because she knew where to look. A man reading the same newspaper at the cafe, a woman with sunglasses near the school gate, a delivery van that moved every few hours. They obeyed her boundaries. No one entered the building. No one approached the boys. Still, Leo noticed. Mama isn't looking over her shoulder anymore, he told Matt over breakfast on the 3rd morning. The other people are doing it for her. Lucia's hand stopped above the toaster. What other people? Matt asked around a mouthful of jam. The man near school. The woman at the market. They watch us. Lucia crouched beside them. They are there to keep us safe. There are complicated adult things happening, But I promise I am going to tell you the truth when I understand it myself. Leo studied her. Is it because of the dangerous man? His name is Tomaso. Do you know him? Lucia looked from Leo's solemn face to Matt's open curiosity. Yes, she said. I knew him a long time ago. A knock sounded at the door. 3 deliberate taps. Lucia's spine stiffened. She was halfway toward the kitchen, reaching instinctively for the knife block, when a familiar voice came through the wood. It's me, Lucia. Just me. She opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. Tomaso stood in the hallway, dressed more casually than she had ever seen him. Dark jeans, a simple button-down, sleeves rolled over the tattoos on his forearms. He held a paper bag that smelled of butter and warm sugar. No guards were visible. You said I would decide when you met them. You did? Yesterday. Your message said 10 o'clock. Lucia closed her eyes. She had sent the message after midnight and spent the entire morning wishing she had not. Behind her, Matt whispered loudly, Mama, are those pastéis de nata? Tomaso looked down at the bag. I was told they are excellent. Matt appeared at Lucia's elbow. Leo stayed several feet behind him. Lucia removed the chain. 1 hour, she said. Tomaso entered the apartment with careful reverence. His eyes took in the second-hand furniture, the boys' drawings on the refrigerator, the chipped blue bowl near the sink, and the narrow shelf of worn books Lucia had accumulated while rebuilding her life. He had once given her jewelry worth more than everything in the room. Nothing he had bought her had ever looked this precious. You did well, he said quietly. With them. With everything. I didn't have a choice. You had many choices. You chose the hardest one. Before she could answer, Leo stepped into the kitchen. Are you our father? The question stopped every movement in the room. Lucia's heart seemed to strike her ribs once and go still. Tomaso did not look at her for permission to lie. He lowered himself until he was level with the boy. Yes, he said, his voice rough. I am. Matt's eyes widened. Leo simply nodded, as if the answer confirmed a conclusion he had already reached. Why did you leave? Matt asked. Mama said you had important work. I didn't leave you. I didn't know about you. Why? Tomaso looked at Lucia then. Not for rescue, but to make sure the truth he told belonged to both of them. Before I knew she was having you, I broke a promise to her. The most important promise a man can make to the woman he loves. I hurt her badly, and she was right to leave me. What promise? Leo asked. The kind you will understand when you are older. What matters now is that it was my fault, not hers. Did you make her cry? Tomaso's throat tightened. Yes. Leo's small face hardened. She still cries sometimes when she thinks we are sleeping. The words landed like blows. Tomaso accepted them without flinching. I know sorry is not enough, he said. But I am sorry. And if your mother allows it, I would like to learn how to be your father. I know I have not earned that. I know you do not know me. Do you love us? Matt asked. More than I knew it was possible to love anyone. But you just met us. I missed 5 years in one photograph. Tomaso's voice cracked. That may not make sense to you. It barely makes sense to me. Matt crossed the kitchen with the impulsive trust Lucia had spent 5 years trying to protect. He wrapped both arms around Tomaso's neck. I wanted a papa, he said against Tomaso's shoulder. All my friends have papas. Tomaso closed his eyes. His tattooed arms surrounded the little body with a tenderness that seemed impossible in a man capable of so much violence. When he opened his eyes again, they were wet. Leo remained where he was. How do I know you won't hurt Mama again? You don't, Tomaso said. Lucia looked at him sharply. You will have to watch me, he continued. Test what I say against what I do. Maybe for years. That is the only way to know whether someone has changed. Leo considered this with the gravity of a much older soul. Then he extended his hand. I'll be watching. Tomaso took the small hand in his. The tattoos across his knuckles spelled life and death in Italian. The two absolutes that had governed his world for decades. Now there was a third. Family. I would expect nothing less, he said. The hour became 2. Tomaso sat at Lucia's small kitchen table and let Matt invent the rules of a card game while Leo watched for inconsistencies in everything he said. As Tomaso prepared to leave, Leo blocked the doorway. Does your work hurt people? Lucia went still. Tomaso could have lied. Sometimes, he said. Do you like it? No. Then why do it? Tomaso looked at his son and saw no safe answer, only an honest one. Because I learned very young that power kept people from taking what belonged to you. I became good at power before I understood what it cost. Mama says people don't belong to people. Tomaso glanced at Lucia. Your mother is right. Leo stepped aside, but his final look was a warning. Tomaso had been admitted into the room, not into their trust. Over the next 10 days, Tomaso came only when Lucia invited him. The clearest test arrived when Matt developed a fever at 2 in the morning. Tomaso brought a doctor in 18 minutes, then stopped outside the bedroom because Lucia told him to. He remained there all night. At dawn, she found him asleep, upright against the wall, close enough to help and far enough to respect the boundary. Tenderness moved through her. She did not mistake it for proof. You cannot keep coming every day, she told him after Matt recovered. The boys are attaching themselves to you, and your presence overwhelms every decision I make. Tomaso's face closed, but he did not argue. How much room? 1 week. You can take the boys to the park, but not here. I need to know whether I am choosing or merely reacting to you. 1 week, he agreed. At the door, he handed her a legal file. Marco had traced payments from a Calabri shell company to Valentina and recovered messages proving she had supplied photographs of Lucia and the original search notice. Where is she? Lucia asked. Switzerland. Alive. Keep her that way. I will. Tomaso indicated the file. The evidence goes to the financial police tomorrow. Fraud, illegal access, conspiracy. Crimes with courts and sentences. Why not handle her your way? Because you asked me to find another price. That night, after the boys were asleep, Lucia spread the file across her kitchen table. Tomaso had included everything. Transfer dates, shell companies, copied messages, even the search notice his office had circulated after she vanished. He had not cleaned the evidence to make himself look better. One detail refused to fit. Valentina's first payment had arrived 2 days before the notice was distributed outside Tomaso's inner office. She could not have sold a document she did not yet possess. Lucia called Tomaso. Someone gave it to her from inside your organization, she said. Silence, then the scrape of a chair. Which page? 42. Compare the payment date with the distribution log. He saw it immediately. Do not leave the apartment. That sounded like an order. Then hear it as information. If you are right, the breach began years before my system found you. Her second phone rang while she was speaking. Unknown number. Lucia looked at the screen. Only 3 people had that number. Tomaso, she said quietly. Someone is calling the emergency line. Do not answer, she already had. For 1 second there was only station noise and a public announcement in French. Then Valentina said, You always did mistake caution for intelligence. Lucia's blood went cold, but her voice did not change. Where are you? Far enough away from Tomaso. Then you called the wrong person if you want protection. Valentina laughed softly, still pretending you do not care. You disappeared with his heirs and expected the world to leave you alone. Did you really believe that? Lucia opened the message screen on her first phone and typed 1 word to Tomaso. Trace. You sold my location, Lucia said. I sold a possibility. Calabri found the rest because Tomaso spent 5 years building a machine that announced what mattered to him. Blame his obsession. I blame both of you. The answer erased the amusement from Valentina's voice. Mauro does not want you, Lucia. He wants to make Tomaso choose. The ports or his children. His empire or the family he failed once already. And what do you get? A new life? Bought with 2 5-year-old boys? Valentina said nothing. Lucia pressed harder. You did not know about them when you sold the search notice. Now you do. Tell Calabri to leave them out of it. You still think I can tell men like that what to do? Fear surfaced beneath the bitterness. You have no idea what you dragged behind you when you ran. No. You opened the door for it. A train announcement sounded more clearly. Genève-Cornavin, Platform 7. Lucia watched Tomaso's reply appear. Marco has it. Valentina seemed to hear the change in her breathing. What did you do? Found another price? The line went dead. Police reached the platform 9 minutes too late, but the call identified the device, the rental account that purchased it, and another Calabri intermediary. More important, it confirmed that Lucia and the twins were not accidental leverage. They were the center of Don Mauro's plan. Lucia stood at the window until dawn, watching Tomaso's distant guards change positions below. She had spent 5 years believing silence made her safe. Now survival required something harder, knowing the truth before someone else used it to choose for her. On the 5th day of her self-imposed reflection, she walked home from the market carrying bread, oranges, and the ridiculous cereal Matt had begged for. The afternoon crowd moved lazily beneath striped awnings. Somewhere near the harbour, a street musician played the same 4 notes again and again. Lucia noticed the man across the road because he did not belong to the rhythm of the town. He was not one of Tomaso's guards. She had learned to recognize them by their alertness disguised as boredom. This man made no effort to appear casual. His attention rested on her with the stillness of a predator. She quickened her pace. He followed. Lucia turned away from her building. If he wanted her, she would not lead him toward the boys. She entered a crowded bakery through the front and exited through the service door, abandoning the groceries on a table. For half a block she believed she had lost him. Then a hand closed around her arm. "Mrs. Marquez?" His voice was silk over steel, his accent Calabrian rather than Portuguese. "Don Mauro sends his regards and an invitation." "Let go." The grip tightened. "That would be unwise. He has waited 5 years for Tomaso Sylvestri to show weakness. Now that he has found it, he would like a conversation." "I am not Tomaso's weakness," the man smiled. "You and those beautiful boys are the first thing he has loved more than power. What else would you call that?" Lucia drove the heel of her shoe down onto his foot and twisted. He cursed but did not release her. "Perhaps," he said, pulling her closer, "we should collect the children first." The sentence ended in a grunt as something solid struck his forearm. His grip broke. Marco stepped between them, drove the man against the wall, and pinned him there with brutal efficiency. "Run!" Marco told Lucia. She did not. Another Calabri man emerged at the end of the alley. A Sylvestri guard intercepted him. People screamed. A cafe chair overturned. The ordinary afternoon shattered. Marco shoved a phone into Lucia's hand. "The boys are already being collected. Car around the corner. Go now. Teresa. With them." Lucia ran. Everything happened very quickly after that. She was pulled into a black SUV with tinted windows. Marco joined her seconds later, blood darkening one cuff but his expression unchanged. Within minutes, another vehicle drew alongside them, and Lucia saw Leo and Matt pressed against the rear window with Teresa between them. They changed cars beneath an underground parking structure. Then they changed again outside Lisbon. The convoy headed inland, away from the coast, away from the apartment, away from the life Lucia had built over 5 years. She was running again. But this time she was not alone, and that made the fear worse. The safe house stood in the Portuguese countryside, behind high walls and electronic gates. Guards patrolled the perimeter, discreet but ever present. The interior possessed the impersonal luxury of a hotel designed for people who trusted no one. Tomaso waited in the entrance hall. His usual composure had split under visible fear. When the boys tumbled out of the vehicle, he swept both into his arms. "Grazie a Dio," he whispered into their hair. "Thank God." "Papa, what's happening?" Matt asked. "Why couldn't we bring our toys?" The word papa struck Lucia almost as hard as the attack. Tomaso held him tighter. "Everything can be replaced. Right now I need you and your brother to be brave. Can you do that?" Leo looked at his father over Matt's shoulder. "Someone tried to take Mama." Tomaso went still. "He grabbed her," Leo said. Marco stopped him, Matt added, momentarily excited by the part that resembled an adventure. "There were 2 men and everybody ran." Tomaso looked at Marco. "Alive," Marco said. "Both. One is talking." Lucia heard the silent decision that passed between them. "Not here," she said sharply. Tomaso turned. "Whatever you are about to order, not where they can hear it." He looked at his sons and mastered himself. "Teresa will show you your rooms," he told them. "I will come upstairs soon." The boys went reluctantly, each looking back before disappearing with Teresa. When they were gone, Tomaso's mask cracked. "He touched you." "I am fine." "One of Calabri's men put his hands on you in broad daylight." His voice sounded like ground glass. If Marco had been 30 seconds later. "He wasn't, because you sent him." "That is not the point." "It is exactly the point. Your men followed me. Calabri's men followed me. Everyone decided where I could walk except me. They would have taken you, and you would have started a war. I would have given them anything to get you back. That is what makes this dangerous." Lucia stepped closer, matching his intensity. "As long as I am connected to you, I am a target. The boys are targets. You were never safe in Cascais. We were safe until you found us. You were hidden. There is a difference. Hiding only works until someone finds you. Then let us go. Pretend you never saw the photograph. If we are no longer connected to you, we stop being valuable." Tomaso's face changed. "Do you truly believe I could watch you disappear again?" he asked. "Spend another 5 years not knowing whether you were alive, whether my sons were safe, whether you needed me?" "It is not about what you want." His hands lifted as if to seize her shoulders, then stopped in the air. Slowly, he lowered them. "You are right," he said. The answer stole her next argument. Tomaso turned to the windows. Beyond the reinforced glass, armed men moved beneath cypress trees. "I have spent my entire life believing protection meant control," he said. "Knowing where everyone was. Deciding what they needed before they could ask. Removing danger whether they consented or not. That is the only language my world taught me." "Then learn another one," he faced her. "Teach me." "No, I am not responsible for teaching you how not to imprison the people you love." Lucia's voice softened without losing its edge. "Learn it yourself." For several seconds, neither spoke. "What do you want me to do?" Tomaso asked. It was the first time Lucia remembered him asking that question without already knowing the answer he intended to accept. "I want facts. Who ordered this? How close are they? What choices do I actually have?" Tomaso called Marco into the room. The captured man had named Don Mauro Calabri directly. Valentina's information had told the family Lucia existed. The stolen facial recognition alert had supplied her location. Don Mauro planned to exchange Lucia and the twins for 3 shipping routes and Tomaso's withdrawal from southern ports. "Options?" Lucia asked. Marco glanced at his boss before answering. "You remain here. We relocate you outside Europe. Or you return to Rome, where the estate can be secured. Which is safest for the boys?" "Rome," Marco said. "But safest does not mean safe." Lucia appreciated the honesty. Tomaso waited. Years earlier, she had fled the estate because its gates felt like prison bars. Returning seemed like surrender. Yet Leo and Matt were upstairs in unfamiliar rooms because the anonymous life she had built had already been penetrated. "If I return," she said, "I return on conditions." Tomaso's focus sharpened. "Separate rooms, separate finances, a private entrance. I keep working. The boys keep their own names until they are old enough to choose. No weapons where they can see them. No criminal meetings in the home. My security team reports to me, not just to you." Marco's eyebrows rose at the last condition. "And," Lucia continued, "I will not be your wife again, your lover or your possession. I will be the mother of your children. Nothing more. You earn trust through what you do. If you violate one boundary, we leave." "Agreed," Tomaso said. "You did not even think." "I have thought about what I would give to have you alive beneath the same roof every day for 5 years. That is not romantic, Tomaso. It is frightening." He accepted the correction. "Then I will say it differently. Your conditions are reasonable. I accept them because you asked, not because fear has made me generous." Lucia studied him. "And Calabri?" "I will end the threat." "How?" The old Tomaso appeared for an instant in the coldness of his eyes. "I have not decided. Decide before we leave this house. Because I will not take our sons into a war." They returned to Rome 3 days later. The Sylvestri estate looked exactly as Lucia remembered. Iron gates, pale stone, the fountain in the courtyard, portraits of dangerous ancestors lining corridors polished to a mirror shine. But it felt smaller now, less like a kingdom. Perhaps years of independence had stripped away the awe she once felt in the presence of concentrated wealth and power. The boys were enchanted. Matt wanted to know whether the house had secret passages. Leo quietly mapped the doors, windows, staircases, and position of every guard. Lucia caught him counting steps between his room and the private entrance assigned to her suite. Her son was preparing to run. He had learned that from her. Tomaso kept every promise. Lucia's rooms occupied the opposite wing from his, connected to the twins' room and to a private staircase. A separate account in her name held enough legitimate money to leave with the boys at any time. She chose 4 members of her security team after interviewing them herself. Criminal discussions moved to an office in Rome. Weapons disappeared beneath jackets before guards entered family areas. Tomaso joined them for breakfast and dinner only when Lucia agreed. He spent 2 hours each afternoon with the twins. Otherwise, he maintained a respectful distance. It was exactly what she had demanded. It also forced her to see him clearly. The cold, controlled Mafia boss she remembered still existed. She saw him in the set of his shoulders when Marco arrived with bad news, and in the silence that fell over armed men when Tomaso crossed a room. But the boys discovered another man. A father who knelt in the garden to examine caterpillars, who read bedtime stories in different voices until Matt collapsed in giggles, who listened with complete seriousness when Leo worried that moving to Rome meant forgetting Teresa. Tomaso arranged for Teresa to stay at the estate for as long as she wished, and bought nothing in return except her continued suspicion. "I have met charming men before," Teresa told him at dinner. "Charm is not character." "No," Tomaso agreed, "it is not." Lucia resumed translating remotely for the law firm in Cascais. She rejected Tomaso's offer of a private office in the main wing and converted a sunny room near her entrance instead. Her first invoice after returning to Rome was small, almost symbolic. Receiving the payment in her own account felt more valuable than any diamond he had once placed around her neck. 12 days passed without an attack. The absence of danger began to feel like danger studying the house. On the 13th morning, a courier delivered a flat grey envelope addressed to Lucia. It had cleared the outer gate, the explosives check, and 2 security desks. Inside was a photograph of Leo and Matt leaving school in Cascais on the final morning before the move. A red circle surrounded each boy. On the back, someone had written 4 words: 1 gate, 1 price. Tomaso read the message once and turned so still that the room seemed to contract around him. "Take the boys downstairs," he told Marco. "No," Lucia said. "No more conversations about their lives that happen while they're hidden in another room." Tomaso's jaw tightened. Then he nodded. They told the twins the truth in language 5-year-olds could carry. A dangerous man wanted Tomaso to give him something. Because the man knew Tomaso loved them, he might try to frighten the family. Guards and locked doors were not punishment. They were time. Time to reach safety. Matt climbed into Lucia's lap. Leo looked at Tomaso. "Will you kill the dangerous man?" No one in the room moved. Tomaso could have offered comfort. Instead, he offered the truth. "A week ago, that would have been the first answer I trusted." "And now?" Leo asked. "Now I know that if I become the worst thing in your life while trying to remove the worst thing outside it, I have not protected you." Leo's eyes stayed fixed on him. "That is not an answer." "No," Tomaso admitted. "Here is one. I promise I will choose being your father before being Mauro's enemy." Leo considered the promise, then nodded once. That afternoon, Lucia required every member of the household to rehearse the emergency route. No one carried the boys. They walked it themselves, from the library through the private staircase, down the narrow service passage and into the safe room. Leo counted turns and doors. Matt asked whether monsters could enter through the walls. "No monsters," Lucia said, kneeling in front of him. "Only people making bad choices, and people can be stopped." At the final steel door, Tomaso gave the boys one instruction. "If the lights go out, you follow Mama. You do not wait for me, no matter what you hear." "You'll come after?" Matt asked. Tomaso glanced at Lucia. "If I can. But your mother gets you out. That is the plan." It was the first security plan Lucia had ever heard him describe that did not place himself at its center. 2 days later, Marco entered Tomaso's office carrying a red folder. Inside were 11 names. Calabria officers had abandoned their normal routines within the same 48 hours. 2 financial intermediaries had emptied accounts. A shell company had purchased architectural plans for the Sylvestri estate. "They are mobilizing," Marco said. "We can hit the officers before they reach Rome." For 20 years, Tomaso had answered danger before it finished announcing itself. The old command rose easily to his tongue. He looked toward the family wing, where Matt's laughter traveled faintly through 2 closed doors. "Not without knowing the target," he said. "Trace the money. Lock down the estate. Quietly." Marco closed the folder. "If Mauro is preparing an attack, quietly may be too late. Then find me proof before fear chooses for me." Tomaso doubled the guard and ordered a full inspection of the generator, gates, and safe room. He did not tell Lucia. Part of him called that protection. Another part knew it was control, wearing a kinder face. Lucia noticed. "Something changed," she said one evening. They stood in the kitchen while the twins built a castle beneath the table. 11 of Mauro's officers have abandoned their normal posts. Someone bought architectural plans for this house. "Do they know you found the plans?" "We do not know." "And you did not tell me?" "I did not want to frighten you." Her expression closed. Tomaso heard the mistake as soon as the words left him. "No," he corrected, "that is not true. I wanted to manage your fear because yours makes mine harder to control." Lucia studied him for a long moment. "That," she said quietly, "is the first honest thing you have said tonight." He showed her the red folder, including the estate plans. "No more deciding which danger I am allowed to know," she said. "No more," he agreed. 48 hours later, at 7:12 in the evening, the estate lights went out. The backup generator should have engaged within 3 seconds. It did not. Lucia was in the library with the twins. Tomaso and Marco were 2 floors below meeting with attorneys. In the darkness, the house held its breath. Then glass broke near the east corridor. Lucia did not wait for an explanation. She took both boys by the hand and moved toward the private staircase. "No talking," she whispered. "Stay with me." Matt began to cry. Leo squeezed his brother's hand. Emergency lights flickered on, staining the corridor red. At the far end, a guard fell backward through a doorway. A masked man stepped over him. Lucia pushed the boys behind a stone column as the man turned. Before he could cross the corridor, one of Lucia's chosen guards appeared from the service stair and struck him hard enough to send his weapon skidding across the marble. The sound that followed was deafening. Lucia covered the twins with her body. Footsteps thundered from below. Tomaso appeared with Marco and 2 guards. His face transformed into the terrible stillness Lucia remembered. "Take them to the shelter," he ordered. This time Lucia did not resist. Choice required survival. She led the boys through the private stair, down a narrow passage Leo had noticed on their first day. Behind them came shouting, then silence, then the heavy locking of steel doors. The safe room contained screens showing every part of the estate. Lucia turned most of them away from the boys, but not before she saw 3 Calabri men forced to their knees in the courtyard. Tomaso stood in front of them. One of the intruders said something. Tomaso struck him once. Leo had moved beside her. "Papa promised," he whispered. On the screen, Tomaso drew a pistol from beneath his jacket. Lucia's blood went cold. The man kneeling before him smiled, as if death would prove a point. Tomaso raised the weapon. Then he looked toward the camera. He knew exactly where the safe room screens were mounted. He knew his sons might be watching. Slowly, Tomaso lowered the gun. He handed it to Marco. The captured men were bound and taken away alive. The breach lasted 9 minutes. Its consequences lasted much longer. The traitor was the estate's deputy security chief, a man Tomaso had trusted for 12 years. Calabria had threatened his daughter and paid his debts. He had disabled the generator and opened the eastern service gate. No fortress, Lucia understood, was stronger than the frightened person holding its key. After the twins finally slept, she found Tomaso alone in the courtyard. Rain had begun to fall. It darkened his shirt and ran over the ink on his hands. "You almost did it," she said. "Yes? Why didn't you?" His gaze lifted to the window behind which his sons slept. because Mauro wanted to prove that I could never change. For a moment, I wanted to prove him right. And then? Then I understood that every order I give becomes part of what Leo and Matt inherit. I cannot tell them violence is wrong while asking other fathers to carry it out for me. Lucia moved beneath the covered archway, out of the rain. Tomaso remained where he was. What will you do? Finish it? Fear crossed her face. Not that way, he said. Tomorrow I sign the cooperation agreement. Every ledger, every account, everything I know about Calabria and everything they can prove about me. You could go to prison? Yes. You could lose the estate? Yes. Your own people may turn on you. Some already have. Lucia stared at the man she had once believed would choose power over every living thing. Are you doing this to win me back? Tomaso's answer came without hesitation. No, if you never forgive me, our sons still deserve a father who does not build their future out of fear. For the first time since returning, Lucia crossed the distance between them by choice. She took his cold hand. It was not forgiveness. But it was not nothing. Tomaso signed the agreement the next morning. Every ledger Tomaso surrendered exposed Calabria and part of his own empire. Companies were seized. Allies fled. Don Mauro Calabri was arrested aboard a private vessel, and the captured intruders connected him to the abduction plan and the estate attack. Valentina accepted a plea agreement for conspiracy, fraud, and illegal access to private data. In her statement, she admitted selling Lucia's location and leaving the bedroom door open because she wanted her sister to see. Lucia read that sentence twice. Valentina had designed the humiliation, but Tomaso had still made the choice. One truth did not erase the other. Tomaso accepted 18 months of restricted residence, supervised probation, financial penalties, and permanent exclusion from the businesses that had carried his power. When an attorney called the outcome a victory, Tomaso ended the meeting. This is not victory, he told Lucia. It is the cost arriving late. The year that followed was not a reward for his sacrifice. It was work. Tomaso met investigators and a therapist. Lucia kept separate finances, separate counseling, and every exit she had demanded. They learned to raise the boys without using them as messengers. When Lucia woke from dreams of the bedroom and asked Tomaso to leave, he left. When he reached for her, he stopped before contact and waited. Sometimes she closed the distance. Sometimes she did not. He watched videos of the twins' first steps and cried without asking Lucia to comfort him. He attended school meetings, served the legal restrictions without complaint, and disclosed every document before secrecy could become control. Matt gradually stopped asking whether Tomaso would disappear. Leo stopped sleeping with his shoes beside the bed. Trust returned in fragments too small to announce themselves. By the following summer, Lucia knew two things with equal certainty. She could live without Tomaso, and she no longer wanted fear to make that choice for her. 1 year after the attack, Tomaso took Lucia to the terrace at sunset. The boys were inside with Teresa, their laughter drifting through the open windows. He held a ring unlike the first one, simple, elegant, chosen for Lucia rather than for the world watching her wear it. He did not kneel immediately. "Before I ask," he said, "you need to know the final transition papers were approved. Marco will lead the legitimate companies. I retain no hidden control. The cooperation agreement remains public. There is no second organization waiting beneath the first." Lucia looked at the ring, then at him. "You gave up everything you built." "No. I stopped confusing what I built with what mattered. And if I say no? The papers remain signed. The boys remain protected. You remain free." Only then did he kneel. "I did this wrong the first time," he said, his voice rough. "I made promises I did not keep. I asked you to build a life with me, then destroyed your faith in that life. I cannot undo it. I cannot ask you to forget it. But I can offer you the man I am now, with no empire hidden behind my back and no demand inside the question." He opened the box. "Marry me again because you choose me, or do not, and I will still spend my life honoring every boundary you set. But if there is a future in which you want me beside you, I want all of it." Lucia looked through the open doors at two small faces pressed badly against the glass. Matt vibrated with excitement. Leo tried and failed to appear as if he were not watching. She looked again at Tomaso. She saw the man who had betrayed her. the father who arrived 5 years late, the violent man who had lowered a weapon, the powerful man who had surrendered power when keeping it became a threat to his sons. The past had not disappeared. It had simply stopped being the only truth between them. "Yes," she said, "I will marry you." Tomaso closed his eyes as joy and relief broke through every careful wall. When he stood, he did not sweep her into his arms until she laughed and opened hers first. "I love you," he said against her hair. "I love you too." From inside, Matt shouted, "Can we come out now?" Leo's voice followed. "You were not supposed to tell them we were here." The doors flew open. Both boys ran onto the terrace and collided with their parents, turning the embrace into a tangle of arms and laughter. They married the following spring in the estate garden, with no political guests, no criminal allies, and no display of power. Lucia walked down the aisle alone because she belonged to herself. Leo carried the rings. Matt applauded before the vows were finished. Tomaso promised never to hide failure behind power again, and Lucia promised to speak before silence became distance. 7 years earlier, a 3-inch opening had shown Lucia what she believed was the end of her life. Now she understood it had only shown her the end of a lie. Everything true came after.